You didn't think you see me, did you? You didn't think I would actually do one. You didn't think I'd do a Raw review. Technically, I don't do them. But this one I had to because of what I was just thinking. And you already see the title. I'm not going to say it until the end. But I'm going to say this before I go through the show, which will not take me long. I am not going to break down the show completely. But I am going to say this. You look at Raw. It has been well thought out. Now, I'm not telling you that the stories are totally compelling. Not all of them are. Yes. A lot of the people they've gotten, they never push much. Or they're brand new to the roster, or they're just sticking with the established people more than the people that have been sitting in the back. Now, I know there's going to be some people who say, dude, are you nuts? They've been using a lot of the people. Yes, but they're not using them for the sake of relevancy. Guys, you got a lot of people on the back, but it doesn't mean all of them feel relevant. A lot of them feel like they've just been thrown to the side. Now, most of that was from Vince. There's no lie about that. But others are in the condition they are because they wanted to push the Bloodline storyline more than any other story they have. Let's make this clear. The Bloodline storyline was the most strongest story they had. And Cody's story was the strongest story they had. Everybody else, zoop, this is the pyramid where Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and The Rock is. Everybody else, zoop, basically slid off the pyramid and ended up nowhere. Some of them were there because Vince forced them there. Other reasons was, well, let's be honest. If you have only a few people at the top and you don't build the others to do anything, you try to make them mean something, doesn't mean they'll get over by the people. And then you have to try and build them to become something. Then you get a draft where essentially no one moves except for a few people. They're playing it safe. And now you get the King in the Ring and Women of the Ring tournament to try and build new people up, try to keep the established going, and hopefully make some of the people that are already there that you're not using feel utilized and hopefully get some level of relevancy. I will tell you this. The vidpaks have been well thought out. When they go to commercial, you see them in the vidpaks that show more like a sports type of situation than the way it was before with Vince and wrestling, how they did their graphics. They've gone more towards what the sports would do for basketball, football, baseball. And I got to say, it actually is a very good look for them. I'm not going to say it's going to work permanently, but at least right now it's working well. The stories are at least mostly compelling. Let's give it to you like this. For the matches we got for the King of the Ring and the Women in the Ring quarterfinals, when you have Shayna Baszler versus Io Shirai, not saying Sky anymore, Io wins, not surprised. When it came to Kofi and Gunther, let's make this clear. Gunther is going to make it near the end of the show. It's just going to happen. He's going to make it. Taking nothing away from Kofi. I still love me Kofi. I still love him. He worked his ass off to get where he is. Kofi Mania got over because of an injury from basically Mustafa Ali. And he managed to make the best of it and finally became a world champion. Let's make it clear. He busted his ass to become a world champion. And then basically Vince said, you know what, I'm done with him. And let pretty much Brock Lesnar destroy him in 5 seconds. That happened. But he still means something. And trying to go through the King of the Ring for pretty much for Xavier makes some sense. It does, because he cares about him. But honestly, he shouldn't be doing it for Xavier. He should be doing it for himself. Because as far as I remember, he's never been King of the Ring. This should have been about him. But he wanted to make it about Xavier. He didn't win. Good match. But here's where it gets interesting. Why are they sticking Kofi with Final Testament? Why are they using a Karrion Kross, who himself needs to get over but is not over, doing something with him? Does that mean Karrion Kross is going to have relevancy? No. For me, personally, I don't see anything good for Karrion Kross. I don't see anything good for Scarlett. I wish they could finish the contract and leave WWE because they've gained nothing. Look, this is Scarlett. But guess what? How much time do we actually watch Scarlett? Almost zero. How many times have we seen Karrion Kross, but then get nowhere? Zero. And it's not because he hasn't been trying. He needs a new change. Going to NXT might have been a change, but pretty much they're done with that. Now he's back on Raw again. So literally, I wish they would just fire his ass. Not because I hate him, but because he needs to start over somewhere else. He's done with WWE. He's gone through SmackDown, tried, got nowhere. Gone through Raw, tried, got nowhere. Now they put him on NXT briefly with the Authors of Pain, and then they got rid of him and sent him back to Raw. He needs to just be released. I'm just being honest. I'm being honest here. Let him and Scarlett go. Moving on quickly. Akira Tozawa, not a match for the semifinals of the King of the Ring. It's just Akira Tozawa having a match with Bronson Reed. Now, I can't tell you I saw the end of the match. I didn't. I had to go to the bathroom. I thought it was going to last at least a little bit longer than it did. I had to go to the bathroom. I hadn't gone yet. And I decided to go, and guess what? By the time I came back, he was done. And they already moved on to the next segment. He was finished. It was with Ludwig Kaiser, who was talking something about what happened with Sheamus and being angry last week because of it. So I did not see him lose. And I know he lost. I just don't know how badly he lost. And let's make this clear. Alpha Academy's not happy. Maxine's not happy because she's being belittled by Chad. Akira Tozawa looks like this because Chad is making him look weak. And then we will talk about Otis in a moment. But this is how Alpha Academy feels. And let's go to Lyra Valkyria versus... Well, let me give it to you like this. Did you think Zoe was going to win? No. Did it feel like she could easily win? Yes. And I thought she might win even though I felt she wasn't going to. Now, just like with Ilya Dragunov, just like a little bit of Braun Breaker, just like Kiana James, we got a good talk when it came to Lyra Valkyria and when it was involving Becky as well as for... Well, let me give it to you like this. If you don't like what happened last week when it came to Liv Morgan and Becky, it's the same thing, even though Becky did deck her in the face. But, and to be honest, she didn't really deck her that hard. It lightly hit to the face. You could hear a light like that, like it came from her leg. Somewhere she hit her. So it could sound like it might have been a real punch. But it felt a little too light for me personally. I don't want to see Liv get hurt. But I think someone needs to slap their side a little bit more like that to make it really sound like a punch. But Lyra had a good talk before all that happened. And the match went along with it. And I will say, as I said before, a well done segments for Ilya Dragunov, Lyra Valkyria, Kiana James. Yes, she was with Adam Pearce with the tag champs. Yes, I know. It was brief, but at least she was spotlighted. I am glad to see this. Even Braun Breaker had a brief moment, even though he wasn't allowed in the King of the Ring. It was brief, but at least they are introducing the NXT stars correctly. Give them moments, let them shine, show some vidpaks about them, and then let them tear up the ring. This is how you get people over. And I gotta say this, I'm not trying to gaslight nobody or start anything. But the conversation I had with somebody earlier, trying to explain to them, dude, you can't just have all matches. There must be some type of character development. This isn't amateur wrestling. I know two people in the comments on my Collision really were not happy when I was talking about you need to develop characters. Well, understand, and I'm sure someone's going to say that they don't like what I'm saying. But as someone who's watched wrestling longer than many of you have been alive, the reason wrestling is so great that you love it so much isn't because of the in-ring product completely. It's because you've been told and you saw wrestling that wasn't 100% all wrestling. No matter if you saw ROH, you're going to learn about something of the other promotions. You're going to learn something about what characters is. You're going to learn about what happened with Undertaker. There's almost everyone loves Undertaker or Shawn Michaels or even the one that will not be named, Mr. Benoit. I know you don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. A lot of these wrestlers that you've heard about, they had to learn character development. They had to do some type of gimmick when they were starting. They had to draw you in, not just from your wrestling, but the emotion they gave you before the match, or maybe during the match, obviously, and after the match. You need to have some type of reaction before the match even happens and when the match happens. If you actually think pro wrestling is just all matches, a match is all that's necessary, I'm going to be honest to you. Whoever's watching this who thinks I am wrong, if that's all you care about, why are you watching pro wrestling? Amateur wrestling is better than pro wrestling. It's real moves. Pro wrestling is maybe 1/3 of the moves. Well, 2/3 of the moves. Let's make it honest. 2/3 of the moves were 1/3 with actual motion, character development. In amateur wrestling, there is no emotion. If you care only about wrestling, then why are you watching pro wrestling? This is pantomime. This is something that started in the carnies. If you don't understand what pro wrestling is, do your own research and see where it got started. It got started in the carnivals. Dudes, ladies, guys, don't think pro wrestling has to be all action in the ring. That's what happened with ECW. Eventually died, not just because it wasn't, basically, Paul couldn't get a new deal. Most of it was due to the fact that the in-ring product was not varied enough. WCW became all over the place and was what you would say what WWE wasn't. It was so focused on making it all generic. It failed too. When you have a good balance of in-ring action, good focused stories, and some extra stuff to interest some people, even if it's a little silly, that is what real pro wrestling is. That's why people love it so much. If you want just straight matches, watch amateur wrestling. I can't tell you anything else. Amateur wrestling is the best stuff. Watch sumo wrestling. They will give you flat out fighting, even though you have to wait about 10 to 15 minutes after they do the rituals. At least you'll get that. Let's move on. Otis versus Sammy. Otis was just like Akira Tozawa. Doing all right at first, but then they went back into their own ways. And Chad was mad at Akira for what he did. I don't know if he hit him or not. But when it came to Otis after he lost, not only did he yell at him, scream at him, he finally smacked him in the face. And see what I said about why people love pro wrestling. For people who said, you don't need this garbage. Sorry. What really makes people love pro wrestling is the emotion people can gain from it. By Chad hitting Otis in the damn face, guess what? The crowd went total complete on the side of Otis, and they were chanting Otis's name. If you only care about matches, understand, you won't like Otis. You won't give a damn about Otis, even though he was an actual Olympic wrestler. But the point is, this is pro wrestling. We want people to care about you. As I've always said, you don't want just in-ring product. You want relevancy, to be remembered, to be cared about, or to be hated. If you don't get it, why are you watching pro wrestling? Watch amateur wrestling. I say it again. Moving on. All right. Becky Lynch versus Dakota Kai is not a semifinals match. This is just Dakota going against Becky. Now, unfortunately, I lost the signal. I lost my feed. So I don't know what happened. The last one, I just went to the bathroom. This one, I lost the feed. So I don't know what happened, who won the match. I'm sure Becky did win, or it got DQ'd. I'm not sure. I think it might have been DQ'd, or Becky just won the match. But in the end, Lyra Valkyria came out again like she did last week, helped Becky Lynch, which is fine. But then Liv Morgan grabs Becky and throws her outside the ring. I'm going to tell you this. Am I really interested in Liv Morgan going against Becky Lynch? I don't hate Liv. Liv is not a bad wrestler. She's decent when it comes to her stories, when she is playing her character, whether it's a face or heel. In this case, she's more better as a heel. As a face, she is a little too sloppy with it, but she's better as a heel. Here, it's not bad, her work. She's doing her revenge tour. She's done a revenge tour. She wants a damn title back. I can see that it's not that bad. But am I really interested in seeing Becky go up against Liv Morgan? As much as Liv is a good-looking woman who doesn't do bad in the ring and is not bad talking, no. I want someone more substantial, but here's the problem. There is nobody. That's the problem. There's no one really substantial other than people from Damage Control. Other than maybe, and then on the other brand, you got, maybe if you got Charlotte back, then it wouldn't be bad. Because we haven't seen Charlotte in months. She's still recovering. That would be understanding. But in this situation, the only few that could be done, Bianca Belair, when you got Becky with Bayley, if we had Sasha back, yes. But essentially, there are very few people they built up enough to be interesting with Becky. Unless you're going to start making Lyra the one that's going against Becky eventually, which I can understand. They did that in NXT. They may do this here, but she ain't ready yet. It's too soon. So that's all we got. Now, the Fatal 4-Way for the number one contendership. Creeds, Authors of Pain, which I knew weren't going to get anywhere. You got Judgment Day and the New Catch Republic. I thought maybe the New Catch Republic might be the ones to make it. Because I didn't think the Creeds were going to do it. They're not ready. I didn't think at all it was going to be Authors of Pain. Because every time you put them up against a small team, they whoop ass. But then they never get it done in a clinch. Ever. That's what's happened when it comes to Final Testament. Instead of leaving them alone with Paul, they didn't want to do it. They stuck them with Karrion Kross and Scarlett, who is like this. Who is a woman that's so damn gorgeous. You want to see more of her, but you never do. AOP feels irrelevant. I'm saying it again. They feel irrelevant. It's not about the ring work they do. It's about how they're showing them. When did you last see AOP get anywhere? You haven't. Having to go up against... But once they fought the Pride, that screwed them up completely. The Pride destroyed whatever Final Testament could have been building. I'm being honest here. The Pride destroyed what they could have built up with them and made them a real interesting faction. And then the Pride didn't get anywhere either because they were stuck with Final Testament. Instead of letting them build themselves up separately and then eventually bring them together, you brought them together immediately. Dumb. Now, we get Judgment Day winning that match. And it's due to Carlito. Carlito's been trying to get in Judgment Day. He's basically with Damian. Damian knows him. He knows Damian. And Damian don't trust his ass. But he did say it was cool for him to help his boys. But he still doesn't trust them. So we will see how far Carlito will get in Judgment Day. Now, do I believe it's the wisest thing to see Carlito in Well, let me give it to you like this. Carlito is Carlito. He's going to do whatever he's going to do to get ahead. He's going to try and get that match with Damian Priest. It's going to happen eventually. I'm sure of it. When will it be? I don't know. But they're going to show him build up into Judgment Day eventually. At least until Mommy comes back. And the question is going to be, will Mommy trust a Carlito if Caribbean Cool doesn't start hitting up on Dom's girl, which you wonder because of what Damian Priest said. What's going on with him and Mommy? Just saying. Final thing. Jay versus Ilya Dragunov. I wasn't too surprised that the fans were not really very behind Ilya when he first came out. There's still a lot they don't know about him. You don't hear them cheering at first. Not until he got into that match with Jay. And they started really... And this is the reason why the title is the real... Well, actually, the true tribal chief wins again. Jay is now the type of person that he is so over with that South Carolina crowd. He was so over that even though Ilya didn't really get a huge amount of traction from the fans, not until he started wrestling him, the fans started really getting a little more behind Ilya. I know it's going to take a while for them to get behind Ilya. There's no way they're going to get behind Ilya so quickly. They're just not. A lot of them just don't watch NXT, and now that they're exposed to him, they have to build him up. And good to see he still has the music. He's still dressed normal the way he does. He's still wrestling the normal way he does. In fact, he tore part of Jay's earlobe down here. I think he tore it when he gave him a kick. He might have actually tore it a little bit, so he was bleeding here a little bit. So that's Ilya. He has that tendency to do that with other wrestlers. But I'll tell you, it was a very good competitive match. I knew Ilya wasn't going to win, but it wouldn't hurt him to lose here. He went up against one of the people who has been in the most important storylines for the last 4 straight years. He is a major part of the main roster's main event. Main event Jey Uso is a main event wrestler. He is. If you don't like Jey, I can't tell you. It's not my job to tell you who you're supposed to like. You got to make the determination yourself. But as for me, I said last year they could have pulled the trigger on Jey Uso to become the next tribal chief. I still believe that. And I've heard, and he did win his match. And then Gunther came out and they're going to be facing each other next week. Do I believe he's going to win? I don't know. I don't think he will. And it will be Gunther going to the finals, going up against somebody. I do believe that. But if he doesn't win, this could be setting up Jey Uso to become the first King of the Ring as a Samoan. And if he is, as far as I'm concerned, the uncrowned tribal chief would win the King of the Ring. I said it last year, and I still believe this, that he was over enough then that he could have been allowed, he didn't need to care about the title when it came to Roman. It was about the title of the tribal chief. Because as it stands right now, what do we have right now? We have Solo's faction, which we don't know if The Rock is running it or if it's just Solo himself. Then we know they're going to have to do something with Roman, who is the current tribal chief, and he's going to try and get maybe Jacob Fatu by his side because he hasn't been seen yet. He's signed. He isn't seen yet. They're going to see, counting on when Jimmy comes back because he's injured. The only other person he could get is going to be Jay. And then maybe Sami Zayn, who's current IC champion. The question's going to be, will that work? Let's make this clear. When they went to, he was so over in France. Jay was so over in France. That's translated now here. He was so over in France and he's still over here. I do not know if teaming him back up with Jimmy would be the wisest thing. He can work with Jimmy, can work with Roman, but not be a part of the bloodline. He needs to be on his own until he takes it over. Because let's make this clear. Roman said he was going to be the next tribal chief. And to be honest, I still believe that he's meant to be the first tribal chief of, well, let me give it to you like this. Out of all the people that's going to be there, there's going to be about 8 or 9 people that are Samoan on that damn roster. I am telling you right now, the right person to become the new tribal chief will not be Rock. Roman shouldn't be tribal chief. Solo shouldn't be tribal chief. It should not be Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tamaloa. No. Jay is the only one that makes the best sense moving forward to become the next tribal chief. Legitimately become the tribal chief. While Alpha, Sika, and Rikishi is there to recognize him as the next tribal chief. Now, I want to make this clear. And I want to make this very clear to anyone that's listening to this. If this happened, it will get over. But let's make this really obvious. This will be a 4 to nearing 4.5 year story by the time he may become the next tribal chief. And the kicker of this is one of the strongest stories they have, and to be honest, one of the few stories they really have that is relevant. Because you got Cody, you got here's Cody, here's the bloodline, here's Roman, here's Rock, and if Jay becomes tribal chief, he will be this. But it will all still be connected under one banner, the bloodline. Yes, Cody has his own story, but he had to deal with the bloodline to get it over the most. Because it had to be Roman. So the main story, the bloodline, is still there. And at this point, being nearly 4 or nearing by the time, if they pull the trigger on Jay, 4.5 years, that is a long ass story that many people will be fine with, but others are going to say, don't you have any fucking thing else to do, WWE? Or should I say TKO WWE? Because as much as people want to say, dude, Triple H is doing... Learn this. Triple H is an employee. Nick Khan is an employee. Ari Emanuel is the boss. And whatever Ari Emanuel wants, it goes from Ari Emanuel, bounces around with basically the board of directors, goes to Rock, then goes to Nick Khan, then it goes to a Paul Levesque. So it's going to go through Ari, through everybody there, Rock, which is on the board of directors, Nick, and then Paul. No matter how many times everybody keeps saying this is the Paul Levesque era, no, it's TKO Group Holdings era. It is Ari Emanuel's era. That's the truth. Peace.